You did it. You finished your degree program or your training program, and you're ready to take the world by storm. But before you get too far into the real world, we wanted to take a minute to give you some maybe first steps to consider as you're starting your adult journey to help you just get a leg up, because all of us have had at least a moment, even you, with how short of a time there's been, of a gap between there. There are things that you go, oh, I could have done that. And so our hope today was to help people get a head start. I've got Alec here today. He's been on the show once before. So he is, I teased, he's the one that's the closest to having graduated. So he got to do this topic. I went through a really deep filtering process to decide who did this topic.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm excited for this topic. I'm pretty fresh out of college. I graduated in 2022. So this is a topic that I feel like I could really relate to, because a lot of these steps that we're going over is stuff that I've learned and are trying to apply to my life. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited for this topic for sure.
Because you've certainly had the benefit over some people of, you went basically straight from college to us. Yeah. And so you get preached at a little bit about things you need to do from those of us that are like, if only I had known, I would do this.
Yeah. No, it's really nice going to work for a financial advising company, because I don't really have to go and outsource for this information. It's information I need to know, and everyone around me knows. So it's definitely been a blessing to have that right out of college and get on the right foot early.
Yes. So what would you say is the biggest aha moment for you going from school to here when it comes to financial stuff, topics?
Ooh,
I put you on the spot there.
Yeah, that's a good question. The biggest aha. Well, I will say one thing, just to jump into it, is budgeting was something I never really got into, and I was not good at in college. And like actually treating your finances like a balance sheet, that has been a big aha, because I'm able to stay in touch a lot more and really know what my money is doing. And budgeting goes with everything. I know what money's getting invested, what money's going to the side, and really being intentional with your money, I would say. And the budgeting kind of leads to all those different avenues.
There you go. Okay, so we're going to talk more about that in a little bit. But the first thing we're going to talk about is being realistic with your financial goal setting. Now, let me be clear. I'm not telling you not to set good goals, because you want your goals to be something you have to reach for. If you're already on that trajectory, why make a goal, right? If my goal was to gain weight, that'd be easy. I just keep eating junk. If my goal is to get healthy, I'm going to have to put some effort out. But you do want those to be realistic. Some degree programs are not going to pay enough to you to pay off your student loan debt in 5 years. Making a goal for that's silly. If you're a teacher, you're going to basically be homeless if you try to pay off all your debt in, a short period of time. There's other ways to get around that, or other ways to set those goals, but making sure that your goals are realistic, understanding the average salary of your career path, and setting some post-graduation goals that are realistic for the budget you're going to have is really important, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think a lot of people set goals that are a little out of their reach. For example, if I'm getting out of college, I don't need to set a goal to buy a home in a year, like a nice home, because it's not going to happen. Analogy is like, if I play guitar, and when I was learning guitar, we started off just learning chords and scales. I'm not going in there trying to learn Stairway to Heaven, some crazy song. Like, I got to get the basics down, and that goes with your money as well. I want to start with an emergency savings, or I want to start paying off debt. I need to get little wins under my belt, and see how much I can save each month before I'm going to buy a house and taking a loan out to get a mortgage, and setting goals that are just very overwhelming, because you need those little wins. And I think it's really key to get started small and then build your way up to get to some of those bigger goals.
And I think for some coming out of college, there's this mentality that you want to keep up with your peers. You want to appear as if you're being successful. And sometimes that can cause you to develop bad financial habits. And you talked about debt. That's one of the big ones, is getting into debt over things, buying new cars. There's a statistic for kids coming out of med school. I say kids, by then they're in their mid-20s. But, when coming out of medical school and just getting even more in debt because they want to get the big house, they want to get the nice cars and all that. They've waited so long where if they just wait a couple more years because they make a lot of money, they could pay off all their student loans quickly, and they could, get to those other goals very quickly if they just exercise a little discipline. And that kind of leads into our next kind of tip for you, is to create and stick to a budget. Now, did you create that first budget and it was magical and everything worked great?
Well, I didn't create my own budget. I'm not an Excel person, so I got a budgeting app and it kind of set it for me. I highly recommend it because I'm not going to get in there every week and get in Excel, type my bank account info in. I need someone to kind of help me out. So I would highly recommend a budgeting app. That made it a lot easier for me, but now, one thing is you have to stick to it, because you can have that app on your phone, but if you don't get in and do stuff, it's not doing anything for you. And that was one of the things I learned. Like, I had it for a month. I was happy. It was great. Got my budget. And then I kind of slacked off. And then I was like, oh, I have a budgeting app on my phone a few months later. And now it's a habit. Like, if I'm on my phone, I'm going to get in there. The thing about having a budget is it makes you financially aware of your expenses, because a lot of people get right out of college and they've got a couple $1,000s hitting every couple weeks, and it doesn't matter. Like, you've got money that you've never had in your bank account before, so you're like, everything's good, but you're gonna have bills and you're gonna need to be seeing where that money's going and keeping track of it. And I think that being financially aware of where your money is going is really the key to it, because if I'm spending $600 a month on fast food, if you don't see that, you never know. But if you see it in a budget, that hurts. That really hurts.
I think when I met my husband, he was asking me to help him because he was overspending, and he knew because his balance is lowering every month, and he made good money. And I looked at it for him and I said, do you realize that you spend $800 a month as a single man on food? And he went, what? Now, if you've met my husband, he can eat. He can eat like he should weigh 600 pounds, but he doesn't. But that was one of those things. And I know one of the things we like to tease you about, but we find so exciting about you and your choices, is that you bring lunch every day.
Oh, yeah.
And this boy can cook, by the way.
I like cooking.
He likes to cook. He brings his leftovers. Very responsible about that. But the key is, like you talked about earlier, is mindfulness. Make sure you're including an emergency fund in the budget, that you're doing something to progress towards having an emergency fund in there. And if you have debt from school, start planning for how you're going to pay it off. It may be that you qualify for a program that will pay it off for you over time. If so, meet the requirements, keep good records. We also just recently did an episode about student loan debt and how you can take care of that. So if you need some help, check out that episode. But, you can avoid overspending. You can avoid adding to your debt just by being mindful. So you want to be realistic with your goals. You want to create and stick to the budget. Don't just get the app. Make sure you're in the app regularly.
Yep.
And then next thing is understanding how credit works, because y'all, swiping for purchases, that is a slippery slope.
Yeah.
And it can add up really quickly. So I'm gonna throw myself on blast here. My husband and I are getting ready for a trip. We've had some additional income coming in, and both of us have some things that we've kind of hesitated on purchasing because of the expense of the travel ball and things like that. But recently I went, I'm spending an awful lot of time on Amazon. And so we both had a conversation. We're like, you know what? We're going to get together every Friday, and we're going to give each other accountability about what we have purchased that week, because we noticed that we were a little out of balance. And just knowing that I have to explain to him what I purchased makes me hesitate on things that are frivolous. Like, y'all, I literally bought spikes to hold the beach towel on the ground like it's going to fly away. Y'all, it was a moment of clarity for me. But, if you don't have boundaries in place, it can be a really slippery slope when you don't have to hand over cash to pay for things.
And another thing is, with your credit card, you can kind of forget about it. And because it's not, there's a mental loss when you hand cash somebody, like you said, but with a credit card, you don't see your bank account going down. It's just you really see it going up in your credit card balance, and you don't have to pay it off every day or every week. You can let that thing keep on building. A lot of people will say pay it off every day, every couple of days. I do it every week. And that way, at the end of the month, I don't have this huge balance staring at me in the face where I'm like, I can't pay that now. I got to wait till I get paid again. And if you see a balance on a credit card over $1,000, it's like, oh, I just had to drop $1,000 on my credit card, when really it's just like that's all your monthly expenditures you've had. And I think paying it off quick, not getting into debt, keeping the balance small is good, but you also kind of have to have a credit card to build credit, especially right out of college, because a lot of people don't have a good credit score, which you need you need credit history as well in order to buy a home. So I think it's important to get a credit card, but stay on top of it. Don't let it get way out ahead of you.
But I think you had a really important thing that people may not have caught. You said a credit card. Don't get the store cards, because you're going to forget about them if you're like me. Or like I have a couple of store cards that I'll use just for the discount, but only because I can pay it off immediately. So I charge it and then I make a payment with my debit card immediately. But because I've been burned by that, where I've paid late fees on a card I didn't even know I had a balance on. So, use it sparingly. And I like the idea of paying it off weekly, because then you're having to budget it into your spending, and your bank balance is feeling that burn. So you're going to be more responsible there. And use it for purchases, but paying it off within a few days also helps build your credit over time. That quick turnaround, because there are specific times of the month that your credit card reports. And so you staying on top of that balance, having the available credit is actually really helpful. But again, making a budget, making sure you're staying in budget with that card, that's the key. And making sure you're not paying late payments. One of the things I did when I was younger and not quite as on top of my credit cards is I at least had it pay the minimum balance automatically, so that I knew I wasn't getting late payments. So that's something you may do as well. And if you need to pay it off, you can use the debt snowball. Having a plan for paying it off is really critical. And then our last tip is begin investing now. I think early start. If you have access to an employer plan, capture the match. Do not walk away from free money.
Yep.
I mean, not lectured you enough about that one, I think.
It's free money, immediately 100% return on your money. There's no reason you shouldn't. And start as early as you can, because we have a lot of illustrations showing if I invest $100 a month starting at 20 compared to starting at 30, and it's just a massive difference, because you have 10 years of growth in dollar cost averaging. And I preach it to my friends all the time. I'm like, now is the time. Get a Roth IRA. You've got to. They're like,
time is going here away. He comes.
Yeah, he's going on a rant again. But it really does make a big difference, because a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to start thinking about retirement. That's 40 years in the future. But if you start in your lower 20s, you can really build a great retirement picture and get ahead to where when you're in those prime income years and you're also in your prime expense years, you're not having
to hit the ground running just to catch up.
Yeah, you're not having to throw the max plus more back. You've got retirement funds waiting on you.
Yes. And if you don't have an employer plan, using your IRAs, using your non-qualified accounts, whatever you have access to, use it and get started. Warren Buffett has actually been quoted saying, "My wealth has come from a combination of living in America, some lucky genes, and compound interest." Compound interest is just basically the process of your money making you money over time. Now, one thing you got to remember, once the money goes into the account, to the employer plan account, it is dead to you. You've heard me say this before to clients, right? It is dead to you, because if you go back in and get it, then it's lost its ability to benefit you long term. So there are a lot of people that would say, well, it's not that big of a deal. I personally would say, let it be dead to you.
Yeah.
Okay. It is time for our final 2 cents. I'm going to let you go first, Alec.
Yeah, just kind of piggybacking on what we were talking about a second ago. Just get in the market early, be intentional about your money, have a plan with your money, and live with inside of your means. They seem like really basic things, but that's all it takes to build financial independence. And entering the workforce can be an exciting step, and there are so many things pulling at you at one time. What we're asking you to do is just pause and be intentional now to make that trajectory stronger for your future. Thank you guys so much for joining us today on Talking Sense. Thank you, Alec, for being here. Of course.
If you liked this content, make sure you subscribe, follow, click the little bell, do all the things to make sure you're getting the episodes every week when they come out. Thanks for listening to Talking Sense. And if you like what you hear, make sure and subscribe to the podcast to get all the newest episodes. The Gym Wealth team is available to you 24/7 at info@getreadyforthefuture.com or by calling our offices at 866-653-PLAN. That's 866-653-7526. And while we like to have fun here, we're also financial advisors, and that means disclosures. You should personally consult a financial advisor before making any investment, and no strategy can assure success. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Independent Advisor Alliance. Independent Advisor Alliance and Gym Wealth Financial Advisors are separate entities from LPL Financial.